Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Al-Mizan Sunday. Al-Mizan Sunday occurs on the fourth Sunday of each month. It is sponsored by Master Walter D. Muhammad in Houston, Texas. It is led by sisters but is not intended for an all-female audience. As this is the beginning of 2025, we wanted to take a moment to revisit what our vision is as Al-Mizan. Al-Mizan has sisters from around the country that are scholars in their respective areas, and we bring them in to discuss Quran and Sunnah from a female perspective. Our vision is to achieve balance through Al-Mizan by increasing inclusion of women as it pertains to decision making, scholarship, and leadership throughout the Muslim community. Our mission for how we will achieve this is to provide a platform highlighting the elevation of scholarship of Muslim women throughout our community and to discuss issues within said community to improve our daily lives using Quran and Sunnah. So we like when we have speakers that come into Al Mizan and present on Quran and Sunnah that they speak on subjects and topics that will help us in our daily lives, not as women, but as humans, as Muslims, as mu'min. We this year in 2025, we hope to focus more on some in-person speaker sessions to be held at Master Walter D. Muhammad. So please look forward to those coming in the future this year. We also would like to welcome more audience feedback as it pertains to our topic areas that we present here. So please take the opportunity either in the comments section to provide us with feedback on any subject matters that you would like to see us present. With that being said, we are moving to a quarterly focus area format where each quarter we will be focusing on a different focus area, a topic area. So for first quarter of 2025, our focus is renewal, recalculate, rejuvenate, representing the starting of the Gregorian calendar. Also, Ramadan occurs in the first quarter. So it's an opportunity for renewal, rejuvenation, and then spring's arrival occurs in the first quarter. So that's one of the reasons why we chose that as our quarterly focus. So when we bring in our presenters, they'll be focusing on one of those areas for the first quarter of 2025. But today we have Sister Naimah Mustafa, who is a frequent presenter for our Al Mizan Sunday Taleem. She's also a frequent presenter for Masjid New Africa's Sunday Taleem. So if you'd like to go over to their page and check out some of her Taleems, you'd be very inspired and enlightened. She's also an instructor for the Islamic Learning Institute and their Quranic Arabic program. And she's been a speaker for several different conferences around the country. I give you Sister Naimah Mustafa. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Naimah.
Wa alaikum assalam. Sister Sandira, how are you?
Alhamdulillah, pretty good. Did you have any slides you wanted to present or show?
I did.
Okay.
I think I can hit this present icon.
Yes, I think so.
And I'll just share the screen.
Okay. I'm going to pull out.
Sure. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I want to first say thank you as I'm sharing this to the to Masjid Wardi Muhammad and the community there for inviting me frequently to present on my thoughts on certain topics. So I appreciate that. I want to say assalamu alaikum to the community there and give thanks for that. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalat wassalam ala rasulihi wa ashabihi wa alihi ajma'een. And that is just giving the greetings and just glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and giving thanks and praise in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. All praise is due to Allah, Lord and cherisher of the worlds. As well, we send prayers, peace and prayers, or we pray for peace and prayers upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions and his family, all of them. The prayers are for each individual and as a group, prayers for them. And So with that, I'll start. So as Sister Sandira stated, I was informed that the topic for today was, as she stated, on renewal, rejuvenation, rebirth, if you will, and to present something along those lines. And not that she told me what to present, but that's the vibe, right? And the idea of, with this renewal, like making intents and attempts to try to maybe like calibrate our actions such that we train ourselves to be a bit more cognizant of how we present as Muslims, but more, I think the baseline of that, not necessarily present from a aesthetic way, but how are we, our daily lives, right? That we feel like we are getting as close as possible to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're seeing that reflected in our lives. That's what I took from that, which is what led me to the topic and my title. And I hope it aligns with what the intent was for the Taleem today. So my title is called Resolutions. Beyond the Wish List, subhanAllah, Beyond the Wish List, Uncovering Quran-Inspired Habits and Patterns for Lasting Change. And so I came up with this because when you think about, as she stated, right, first of all, when you have a new year, right, everybody's like, oh, my New Year's resolution. And then we have the new year, we have Ramadan coming up, and then the added spring. I didn't even think about that, like spring. And those are always times where it seems that everybody starts to talk about all these things that they want to do. Like, I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to be this. I'm going to do better. I'm going to, right. And not that. And so what triggered this is that in trying to think about how I would fulfill the assignment of speaking on this, and also feeling a little bit inadequate because I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying myself, right? I don't know how to tell anyone to do that. SubhanAllah, it led me to the Qur'an in search of, how would I frame a presentation around a notion of that manner that can be so diverse, that has so many levels to it, because everybody is different. And how do you give one bit of advice that will suit everybody, right? Some things just don't, there's some dynamics in our life where, it just doesn't always work that way. But subhanAllah, right, the Quran is for everyone, right? So there has to be an answer in there. So alhamdulillah, it led me to the Quran. And so what I did, I just said, well, let me just start at the beginning, right? SubhanAllah, and see. I have some ideas of kind of what I felt, but I just started reading, starting with Fatiha, then went to the next surah, Surah Al-Baqarah. And so in the first 5 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, 1 through 5, that should say 1, 2, 5 through 5, right? We have, and I'll just read it and then talk about it. So as I'm reading, right, and so we have Surah Al-Baqarah, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون. Subhanallah. الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. So those are the first 5 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, right? And so when you, the initial reading, right, is, and this is a translation I got from Corpus Quran, and the initial reading, the translation is along the lines of this Arbery translation, right? Alif Lam Mim, right? And we know that those that those don't have a translation that we can necessarily perceive. And it says, this is the book in which there is no doubt, a guidance for those who are mindful of Allah, of God, his translation, mindful of God, who have faith in the unseen, establish the prayer, and then they give from what we have provided for them, and who believe, and also, right, and also they are the ones, right, the muttaqin are the ones who believe in what has been revealed to you and what was revealed before you, and they have faith in the hereafter, or certainty, right, they're certain about the hereafter, and they are the ones who are guided by their Lord, and they are the ones who will succeed, right? So that's the initial reading, right? So when you think about that, it doesn't, right, based on our topic today, it doesn't really give any hint that what does this have to do with New Year, rebirth, what have you, right? Because this is the literal translation, if you will, right? And it's talking about, okay, this is what we have to do. These are things that characterize the muttaqin. These are things that, you know, they will do to gain success. But there were some terms that stood out to me as I'm reading it. And right, we have al-muttaqin, yu'minun, yuqimun, yunfikun, yuqinun again, and then muflihun, al-muflihun. And so in looking at these terms, there's some key aspects of this that made me think about how this applies to, we talk about rebirth or resolutions or changes in actions, right? So again, resolutions, right? We think about it's the new year. We're coming up on Eid. And then just the blooming of the flowers is going to happen soon, right? And everybody's like, I got to do something new, right? It's been snowing. I'm getting out this house. The sun is shining. It's Ramadan. I'm about to start switching some things up, right? Even from a, if you will, secular perspective, right? People start saying, oh, you know, my beach body, my this, my that, right? It's always about doing, you know, new year, new me type of thing, right? And so a lot of resolutions are made as we word it, right? And so from this is an Oxford dictionary here, this information that I got, it says a resolution, right, is a firm decision to do, right, or not to do something, right? You made a decision that this is what's going to happen or this is what is not going to happen. For example, here they have a simple that says, right, she kept her resolution not to see Ann anymore, right? She was resolved that I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to stick to that, right? Or it's the quality of being determined or resolute on something, right? He handled the last French actions of the war with resolution, right? With just, I'm sticking to it. That's what it is, right? And so that's resolution, right? The definition. But as it relates to the act of saying my New Year's resolution or this Ramadan, I'm going to do this or what have you, my opinion is that sometimes, right, when we talk about making resolutions, is that it usually reflects, right, a desired outcome, right? It reflects the outcome that we want to happen, but it doesn't it's not necessarily reflective of the habits that need to change, right, to achieve that outcome, right? And I think it's benign, if you will, because we just instantly, right, we say we want a level of success in something, we want to achieve something, and which I think is good, right? We look at that final outcome and say, okay, I want to lose weight. I want to lower my blood pressure. I want to pray more. I want, right? And we're looking at the outcome, but we don't necessarily say, what is it that I need to do so that this can occur, right? What is it that I need to do so that I could change my blood pressure? What is it that I need to do so that I can pray more or get more prayers in? What is it that I need to do? So if we think about even Ramadan, right? What is it that I need to do that maybe I want to read more during the month of Ramadan? What are the habits that I currently have that has kept me from doing that in the past, right? And how do I shape my thinking or shape a plan of action on how I will tackle those habits this time so that the outcome will become a reality? inshallah. So that's what I was thinking when that was the mindset that I had as I'm reading the ayats 1 through 5 through Surah Al-Baqarah, and I'm seeing those verb forms, right? So this is something where I was looking up just essentially habits as it relates to resolutions, and it says habits are essential for achieving resolutions, right? Because they turn intended actions into automatic behaviors that demand less conscious effort to maintain, right? So you have to develop a habit if you want something to just become second nature, right? It says this shift promotes long-term consistency and significantly enhances the likelihood of accomplishing your goals, especially when you compare it to simply establishing a resolution without developing a routine. In that sense, once a behavior becomes habitual, it's less likely to be abandoned, even during the fluctuations in willpower. Right. So a lot of keywords in this too, as I'm rereading it. Right. But so that brings me back to those words again. So all of the words that stood out to me in Surah Baqarah as I'm reading it, and they stood out to me because I noticed that they were all form for verbs. They were all form for verbs, present tense, but all form for. And there's something that is that you can pull right from the use of the form for verb, especially within these surahs. So form for Arabic verbs, the primary characteristic, right, of a form for Arabic verb is that it often is indicative of causing something to happen. Right. So you're causing something to happen. So when that's being used, it's indicating that not necessarily that action, like you can say, for instance, one shade of it is like a strong causative function. Strong meaning, if I say jalasa, which means like he sat, he sat, right? That's it. He sat. It's done. It happened. It's past. Right. He sat. Even whatever. Jealous, that means he sat. You have an action and you have someone who did the action, right? But if you usually with form for, what happens is that for the past tense, what happens is you add this hamza in front of it, and it turns this into something that was caused. And I should have kind of made this sentence a little more detailed, but you say he made, right? So here that should have been probably a Lord. Here I go writing on stuff again. Maybe I should have added like a who on the end of the ajlasa who, right? So then he made him sit, right? Now he sat, but now you add an object of that action because now you're causing someone to do that action, right? So now you cause someone to do something, right? So that's the strong causative action. This is kind of related to, has some relationship to form 2 as well. But then, right, let's say that, so right here where you didn't really have, you had an action and someone who did it, but you didn't really have an object. It was just he sat, right? But then you have ejlas sahu, right, where you have an action, you have someone who's doing it, and you have an object who it is being done to, right? You have who it is being done to. But then you have a shade of this verb that is reflexive causative, right? So again, where we use the verb fa'ala, right? Just straight up, he did. You got an action, you got something or somebody that did it, right? And then you can say fa'ala who, right? He made him do something, right? You could have another bit of information here saying what he made him do. But then sometimes you can have this causative verb and it will say fa'ala, right? Where you have an action and then you have a doer of the action, right? You have somebody who did something or somebody who did the action, but you don't really have something like he made him do or he made him do this, right? And it looks like, okay, well, there's no object, right? There's no, it's just, right, he made somebody do something, but who was the object of that action? And so the reflexive causative part is you made yourself do it. Right? You made yourself do it, right? This is not something that you made somebody else do. This action is you are the person performing or the thing performing this action, and this action is being performed on you, right? So it's like a full inside job. It's totally an inside job. And what it made me think about is that, right, in these descriptions in Surah Al-Baqarah, right, about the characteristics of one who is conscious, right, God conscious, is that there is in these words an emphasis on initiative, right? Because if you have to make yourself do something, you first have to take the initiative to say, I'm going to do this, right? I have to understand I'm going to do this. And then you have to then start creating those steps, right? Those habits to ensure that that gets done, right? And then you have other related shades that of this meaning that that fall along those lines, right? So form 4, causative, and then you have a shade of it that is reflexive causative, meaning that you are causing yourself to do it. All right, so we got that, right? So form 4, causative, you causing yourself to do it. That's the focus here, right? So when we think about those verbs, right, and let me go back real quick because this is what I should have done. Yukminu, right? Yukminu. I should have typed the English translation. I'm so sorry. So this is amana. This is amana. I apologize. I feel incomplete that I didn't put the English, but this is amana, right? Just the regular form 1, if you will, amana, right? Which means like to believe, or you cause yourself to be, or you're secure, safe, right? But then when you go to form 4, you're saying I'm causing myself, right? A general translation, I'm causing myself to believe, right? I'm causing myself to be safe, right? I'm doing this to myself. And then you have yuqinun, right? You're certain, right? This form is you're causing, right? You're causing yourself to be certain. And then I don't know why I put this twice. I'm going to go back. I apologize. I'm going to go back. Please forgive me. I'm going to go back to the slide so I can make sure I included all the verbs, right? So we have muttaqin. Muttaqin. This is a form 4. And this one, right, is taqwa. We know that root, right, is we know that from taqwa, right? Muttaqin, right? Like waqiyah, right? And this one, right, means like you're protecting yourself, or you're being, we know it as being conscious, right? But you're causing yourself, right, to be conscious of something. You're taking the initiative to do this. And then yu'minu, I just said that's amana, right, to believe or to cause yourself to be safe in something and to believe. You have faith, right? Yuqinun, you're certain. So here, form 4, you're causing yourself to be certain, right? Causing yourself to be certain in that. And then you have yu'minu again, yuqimun, yuqimun, subhanAllah, I forgot that, yuqimun, right? So that's like you're establishing, you're causing yourself to establish, right? Salah. And then yunfikun, you're spending, causing yourself to spend, right? So these are the form 4 verbs. And then those who believe, again, yu'minu, and then here where we have yuqinun, certainty, you're causing yourself to be certain. And then muflihun, right, falaha, is the causing yourself to be successful. Okay, and so those were the form 4 verbs that were there. Now, again, that those 1 through 5 indicate, right, these are the characteristics that lead to the result, right? So what's the end result if we look at just specifically that those verses, right? First of all, we have al-muttaqin, right? So that if that's a goal, right, if that's a resolution that I want to, be more God conscious, right, then the steps to getting there are all of those form for verbs that describe the characteristic of al-muttaqin, right? I have to cause myself to believe, and I have to continuously do this, right? This is not a one and done, right? I'm taking the initiative to cause myself to believe. I'm taking the initiative to cause myself to establish prayer. I'm taking the initiative to cause myself to spend, right? Give charity. Taking the initiative to cause myself to believe in the unseen, and then taking the initiative to cause myself to become certain, right, of the hereafter. And then not only is the result, right, of that is that al-muttaqin, right, that will be a characteristic that you inshallah will embody, but a result of that as well is falaha. It's the success, right? So that's a result of taking the initiative to do those things. So how does this relate to resolutions, right? This is not directly talking about resolutions, but what it's giving us is an example on how to attain success and how to be how to embody characteristics that allow you to be successful, right? In doing these things, when we take the initiative, right, we're conscious of what we need to do, right? We're taking the initiative to do these steps over and over again, which ultimately results in now you're habitual with it, right? It becomes a habit. Now you're habitual with it, then your goal, right? Your goal of success in whatever you're looking for, then will be there, right? That's your pathway to success, right? So all of these, although not necessarily related to my New Year's resolution or my Eid resolution, right? It embodies characteristics that we should try to have so that we can accomplish those type of goals. And again, within Form 4, we're talking about initiative. We're talking about causing ourselves to do things, right? And then from that, inshallah, we can achieve our goals. So with that being said, when we think about how do we do this, what type of steps do we put into place so that we can start fixing those habits, right, that may help us to achieve a goal, right? And everybody's will be different, right? When I think about me, right, I'm thinking about, okay, subhanAllah, right, if I want to stop hearing my doctor say something about my blood pressure, then I need to, recognize, well, what are you doing, right? You're not just going to lower your blood pressure based on just wishful thinking, right? You may want to, and it may sound nice that, oh yeah, my blood pressure is going to be low, or I may want to start working out more, and oh yeah, that sounds nice. I'm going to be working out and be fit and everything. That sounds nice, and that's a good goal to attain. But if I'm speaking to myself, I'd have to say, but Naimah, are you doing all the things that you need to do to ensure that can happen, right? Because you can't go in there and get them cookies and fruit snacks, right? If you want to lower your blood pressure, you can't eat them chips all the time, right? If you want to lower your blood pressure. So, right, I'm looking at the goal, but then I'm saying, but what habits do you have, right? What habits do you have that makes that goal not necessarily unattainable, but the pathway by which you're trying to get it is not, you're not on the right pathway. That's not going to get you there, right? And so I found this little acronym when it talks about goals, achieving goals, and resolutions are just that. They're goals that we've set for ourselves that we want to achieve, and it's called SMART. And it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. Okay, so it's called SMART. And so to explain that better, in terms of specific, right, like when you make a resolution. So if we look at in Surah 1 through 5, Surah Al-Baqarah, ayat 1 through 5, and we look at that the end result of those characteristics of al-muttaqin was that they would be successful. And we know, right, the ultimate success is Jannah, in the hereafter, right? So let's just say that's our goal, right? That's our goal, right? Then how am I going to get there? How am I going to work to get there? Well, Allah has given us, has laid out, very efficiently, ways that, right, believe in the unseen, establish prayer, giving zakat. And then there are other places in the Quran where he also lays out this like the steps of this is how you get there, right? And then your goal, you will be successful in that, right? So if we think about it from there, right, if we're saying, okay, I want to, maybe if I'm telling myself, right, it's Ramadan and I want to pray more, I want to do more prayers, right? Then I can't just say, maybe what I'm pulling from this, right, is I can't just say that I just want to do more prayers during Ramadan, right? Because what does that mean? More than one, more than two? Like what have you been doing, right? So narrow it down to real numbers, because then that makes your success, right? You can then quantify how successful you're being in that, right? So narrow it down to real numbers. Maybe I feel like, okay, I'm not getting all my 5 prayers in, right? So you know what? I'm going to start. I want to get at least 2 prayers in. It could be I want to get 1 prayer in. I don't know, right? It could be whatever you feel like. This is where I feel like it's going to help me get to the next level, right? So now you want to narrow it down to real numbers. What are you trying to do? And then make sure you can track it, measurable. Make sure you can measure it. Some things, that may be a little bit more involved than others, and only you know, right? Because only you know what your intent is. But when we talk about trying to be a little bit more conscious about how we're moving in this world as Muslims, and not so much for others, but what is my responsibility to my Lord, right? The goals that you're making to achieve, the resolutions that you're making to achieve that goal, can you track them? Are you able to say, yep, right, I did more prayers today, right? Are you able to track? Maybe it's not even about your prayers. Maybe you're like, oh, I do all 5 of my prayers, but you know what I'm going to try to do is every night I want to try to be accountable for what I did during that day. Did I get road rage with somebody? Did I treat somebody wrong, right? At the end of the day, I'm going to take some self accountability so I can see, okay, what did I really do that day? And how can I, maybe if it wasn't something that was benefiting my hereafter, how can I maybe not repeat that tomorrow, right? So measurable things, right? How can I measure that I'm doing this? And then make it attainable, right? It can be challenging, but make sure that it's possible to achieve. So attainable. So, for me, right, Ramadan comes along and I say, you know what, I'm going to read all of Surah Baqarah in Arabic for Fajr prayer, right? Like, I may be able to do that, but if I know myself and I know what I was doing before, that's lofty, and that's like, oh yeah, if I did that, man, because I know the benefits of reading Surah Al-Baqarah, as stated in Hadith in your home, and I want those benefits. But what's my stamina for that? Right? What's my stamina for that? Like, I know my stamina for that isn't where it should be. So if I give myself that resolution and then I don't fulfill it, that may, deflate me, right? So be careful in what you're setting yourself up for. So make it attainable, and then be realistic. Those kind of go hand in hand. Be realistic with yourself, right? What are you really able to do so that you don't deflate yourself, right? As you're doing, so you don't place these things out here. Okay, yeah, I'm trying to be more diligent about being more God conscious, being aware of what I need to do to maybe create real changes in my life from an Islamic perspective, and then by extension, right, from just a quality of life perspective. But what is it that I can really do, right? Be realistic and be honest with yourself. And then time bound, give yourself real deadlines, right? So if I'm thinking about myself, if I say, okay, I want to, for this Ramadan, right, I want to do more sunnah prayers, right? I want to do more sunnah prayers. Then when am I going to say that I accomplished that task? So I can maybe go back and then examine it and say, okay, I did it for this long, right? Then now how do I then apply this and keep going, right? So smart, be specific, make things measurable, make them attainable, make them realistic, and make them time bound. And so in doing that, right, so you have this, you're starting out, this is kind of the scaffolding for your resolution or your goal, whatever that may be. And from a Islamic perspective, right? We're thinking about how do I create these through the filter of Quran and Sunnah, right? And again, so many dynamics to that, but ultimately that's my gauge, so to speak. That's my gauge, right? So with that, then there's 7 tips, right, that as I was kind of searching for a really concise way to say, okay, then what are tips for doing this? This one came from UC Davis Health, and it was specifically about New Year's resolutions, but resolutions are just, right, it could be any resolution, right? So there's some, the experts there, they call them experts, offered these tips on how you can make and stick to your resolutions. And so the first one is being picky. And I think that comes with like the smart part about setting, what does it say? Being specific, right? So be picky, right? You may want to lose weight. We may want to eat more vegetables. We may want to volunteer more, quit smoking, spend more time with family. But it says the experts say that too many of those goals for New Year's or any resolution, that's too many goals, right? Because you can't be specific. How are you going to do all of those at the same time? If we're looking at it from the perspective that this is not just a resolution, but this is me changing my habits, right, that I do to get there, right? So we're talking about that initiative. I'm taking the initiative to focus on this and say, what habits do I need to change to get to that point? Because I know that within the habits are the success, right? The habits that we do every day is a reflection of who we are every day, right? Again, back to Surah Baqarah, right? Surah 1 through 5, right? Those habits that Allah lined out, that is a reflection of who we are, right? Al-Muttaqeen, right? It's because I have these habits. I have these habits that I do. And so when I have these habits, then this is a reflection of someone who's conscious, right, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but by extension, conscious of what it is you're trying to succeed or attain, right? You're conscious of that. So when you're conscious of that, you're taking the initiative to create habits and steps that allows you to stay focused on what you're conscious of, but as well, right, attain a success from implementing those habits, right? So it's saying don't have too many. Be specific about what it is that you're trying to do. Pick one or maybe two that you want to focus on, and then go all in for that. But go all in understanding that if this is my resolution, then what is it that I need to do to attain it, right? So, the way I look at it, right, if I'm talking about a resolution, I may say I want to lose weight. I may say I want to pray more, and I have all these others. But then within that resolution, I may have all of these different things that I have to do just to be able to attain that resolution, right? If I just use the example in Surah Al-Baqarah about either being al-muttaqeen, right? Because they almost are kind of one of the other, right? Either being al-muttaqeen or al-muflihun, God conscious or successful. That's, one and the same. Then, right, even from the example from the Quran, al-muttaqeen had all of these characteristics, right? These steps, these habits that needed to be employed, right? Just to get to success, right? So you can kind of understand if they say don't have a bunch of these, because you're thinking, oh, it's just 3, 4, 5 things, but really it's probably about 15 or 20 things that you are going to make yourself accountable for to ensure that you achieve that goal. The second part, plan your resolution, right? It's best to plan for your goal, right? And we can see in the Quran, just in that portion, just in the first 5 ayats of Surah Al-Baqarah, right, that Allah has laid out that plan, right? Here's your plan. Here's how you're going to get it done, right? Think through how you want to accomplish it, how long it might take for you to reach your goal. Now, when we're talking about planning for Al-Jannah, subhanallah, and how long that, like, yuhminun, yuqinun, all of these are causative, right? Reflexive, causative. I'm causing myself to do it, but then that form, that present tense, right, is also saying this is something that's going to go. This is a lifelong job, right? There are degrees to it, right? You may see evolution and you may see yourself excelling, but even once you see yourself to a point where you feel like, oh yeah, I was successful in that, or I was successful in this still lifelong, because you still have to then maintain those characteristics so you don't lose what you gain, right? So think through how you want to accomplish it, how long it might take to reach your goal. It says, for example, I gave an example just now, but for example, their example is, if your resolution is to quit smoking, then research how long it takes an average person to kick the habit and the possible setbacks to expect, right? What is it that, right? What are the habits, right, that you have to address so that your goal or your resolution becomes real? Right, that it becomes more than just like a fantasy, but this is like, no, this is really what I have to do if I want to do that, right? And then proper planning will help ensure you can see it through to the end. Set very specific goals, right? So many of us, it talks about New Year's resolutions, again, want to say, I want to exercise more, right? But as I stated at the beginning, what does that really mean, right? You want to exercise more. What does that mean? For me, if I'm being honest, if I say I want to exercise more, that means, okay, then you can't come home and watch, 3 or 4 hours of Golden Girl reruns, right? You got to get up and get out of that habit of being comfortable with just coming in and just sitting still, right? I know another example for me, this was kind of, it's so funny. I don't know that it's funny. SubhanAllah, sometimes we have resolutions or du'as that we say we want, and we say them maybe at a time when we really truly wanted it, right? And then things happen, life happens, whatever, and you forget, I made that dua, I made that resolution, right? But subhanAllah, Allah never forgets, right? Allah never forgets. So I'm setting that up to say that. So at this point right now in my life, I'm kind of busy, right? Where, alhamdulillah, subhanAllah, I teach what I know of the Arabic. I take tutoring, right, every morning to even learn more of the Arabic. Of course, I'm working, but I was always doing that. And then, I establish on the side my own activities that I do, and also being on committees where I have to help to plan and do things, and then presenting and speaking, right? And so I'm saying that to see that there was a time where my days, especially after my children left home and went off to college and whatnot, was just me, where I would get up and my whole day was my time. And I was comfortable with that, right? If I wanted to do something, I did it. If I didn't, right, I didn't have to worry about it. And now I'm so much more busy. And sometimes I'm like, man, I remember I used to get up and just go watch television, and I was comfortable. I could just in leisure sip my coffee or whatnot. But then I think about, wow, but I did ask to get better at Arabic, and inshallah to learn how to understand it better, right? And so those things come with responsibilities, right? So where I may want something, I need to understand what comes with that, right? Sometimes you may not understand. Sometimes you're just made to understand that this is what happens. And then you have to have the wherewith or the frame of mind to understand, wow, maybe I did ask for this. Or even if you didn't ask for it, especially from an Islamic perspective, when we talk about God consciousness, how is this benefiting me? How is this benefiting me? I may not like it because I can't do what I used to do, but what is the benefit to me and to what I'm doing that I have to say, this is the training that I need to elevate, right? Even though it's like, right, it's the medicine that you need to get to that next level, right? So, sometimes you can, depending on what the resolution or what the goal is, from my experiences, I'm giving my opinion on this, that it may be something that you can say, oh, okay, what this means, I'm going to have to do this, and that. Sometimes, even as you're planning for a goal and you're asking to get better at something or to achieve something, you may achieve it, but may not fully be aware of what that means in terms of what is expected of you. And that just may be that may be your blessing, right? And you have to then say, well, I did ask for this, so I got to accept what comes with it, inshallah, if it's for my greater good and for my benefit in this life and in the next, inshallah. So if you can measure it, and if you can really assess what does this really mean, it gives you a measurable goal to reach each day that you can check off your list, right? So if it's just, I want to work out more, then what does that really mean? That means maybe I have to ditch the habit of just chilling and watching TV all the time. Maybe I have to ditch the habit of, or maybe I have to start creating the habit of, okay, maybe my issue is I don't work out because after I get home from work, and I go in, by the time I get in and I see that couch, well, there it is, right? So maybe I create a habit of just keeping some clothes in the car. So then I don't even, when I leave work, I don't even go home. I go straight to the gym. I already got my clothes there, right? Whatever, right? But know what it's going to take to achieve this. So you're not just like, I want to do this. And then, you're kind of expecting that it's just going to happen by osmosis, right? And again, it helps you feel more accomplished is what is being advised here. 5, don't take on too much, right? Start small. That's kind of self-explanatory. Start small. Avoid setting an overly high expectation of yourself, right? If you want to lose weight, pick a small, realistic weight goal. Maybe it's 10 pounds in 2 months. But once you reach that goal, then you can think about losing another 5 to 8 pounds. So setting small goals can help you achieve big results, right? And I think if I wanted to extend that to, right, that continuous, right, taking the initiative continuously. So let's say maybe you do lose 10 pounds in 2 months. That does not mean then that initiative stops, right? Right, Allah uses the verb form, right? Present tense, meaning it's happening now. It's going to keep happening, right? That initiative that you're taking has to keep happening because you have to maintain that. And then from a perspective of this life and the next, we maintain that until we have achieved that ultimate goal, inshallah, which is Jannah, right? So if you have to start small here, if you have to regulate yourself here, do that while you can and make those regulations, redirect yourself, keep going with that initiative of sticking to those things so that you can make it to a point where you don't have to have the regrets later, if you will. And then 5, choose a new resolution. So for the sake of being true to what was on this particular site, I'll read what they're saying. Choose a new resolution. So they say, avoid picking a goal that you've tried in the past, but you failed. So you may set yourself up to fall into the same pitfalls that stopped you previously. Instead, pick something different where you can set up a better path to success, or maybe you can modify a previous goal if that's something that you still want to accomplish. So, and this may be something, from a more, administrative, if you will, perspective, right? That if I'm working towards something, and I had a goal and it didn't work, maybe I want to readdress that or look at that and see what made it not work. But then there's some resolutions, right, that, or some goals that we have. If I'm talking about, like, if my goal is to pray more, or to read more Qur'an, or to fast more days this Ramadan, complete a Ramadan, I can't ditch those goals. I have to keep working on it. I have to assess with the same mindset, right? What is it that's causing me maybe to not succeed? What is it that's causing me maybe not to do these things? But these things it's not negotiable, right? I can't just say, well, it didn't work, let me move on, right? I can't do that, right? Because from the Quranic perspective, if you do that, then you don't get success. If you do that, you won't have the characteristics, right, that equals to success in this life and the next. So from a Quranic perspective, right, there are some goals that I can't ditch. And that may even apply to certain things in our life. Like, I can't get around it. I can't just act like it's not there. I didn't do it. Some things you have to face head on. And I think that's understood, right? Some things we know in life, you just have to face it. It might be hard. It might be challenging. but it may benefit you. So face it head on, and maybe see what skills you develop from it, how it strengthens you in whatever challenge you're going through, right? So this choose a new resolution can be applied, I think, in different ways. I wouldn't necessarily say choose a new resolution, as I would say assess what you're trying to do and determine, is it something that is negotiable to leave or to continue doing? If it's not negotiable, I can't leave it, then you got to then develop a new mindset towards how you approach it, I think, right? Because what other choice do you have? And then identify accountability partners for support. I think in any community, in most communities, whether it be the business community, in school, even in like, I remember, being the stay-at-home mom, and even in like those type of communities, you have the mommy, play times at different groups where you get and you can connect with other like-minded individuals. And a lot of times that helps in your success in anything, right? You feel motivated, you feel supported, you feel like you're not the only one. And that's very important. Of course, we know as a ummah, as a community, we have a grand ummah, I think, but in our smaller communities, that's very important when we talk about, I'm going to try to do better. I'm going to try to do better in how I assess my taqwa, right? How I work towards increasing that, right? That support in the community is important. And I'll tell you another thing that I think can help this, even if you're not actively seeking out, okay, this is going to be my accountability partner. For instance, like we can get so busy with life and with things going on. So for instance, with me, I know that every morning, right, like clockwork, I'm at set, in the morning, I'm in tutoring, right? I have to get up early to do it because I'm being tutored by someone on the other side of the planet, right? So our times are different, so I have to do that. And then maybe 2 times a week, I'm teaching what I know of the Arabic, but in both of those settings, no matter how busy, and then 2 times out the month, I'm doing halaqah with the sisters group, and then I'm maybe meeting with department members to work through something. But all of those things that I just mentioned, every last one of those individuals are Muslim. Right. Every last one of those individuals are Muslim. So even if I'm not intentionally saying you are my accountability partners, there is not a time that I don't go to any one of those sessions where, because we are all Muslim, there is some type of reminder of keeping yourself focused, right? Keeping your taqwa, right? Either in my tutoring, we're working on some type of grammar, and inevitably one of us is like, oh yeah, in the Quran it says this. Oh yeah, in the Quran it says that, right? In class, right? You teaching, you're working on that, but then it goes back to the Quran, right? Because we're all there trying to learn it for the sake of understanding the Quran better. In my halaqah, right? We have conversations, and it goes back to to Quran and Sunnah, and a reminder, right, of who we are. And so what I'm saying is, even if when we talk about from an Islamic perspective, from my experience, right, I didn't seek out to say, you're going to be my accountability partner. I just sought to engage in activities that helped me in my Islamic journey. And alhamdulillah, those activities helped to keep me accountable in one organically. They just do, because in one way or another, there is going to be a reminder or something that keeps you focused on the fact that, remember the Quran, remember the Sunnah, remember, right? So when we talk about accountability partners, in business wise, you may have to, depending on what your business is, there may not, your accountability partners may not necessarily be from an Islamic perspective. But when we talk about how we are moving and trying to live our lives in a way that is more reflective of us being more God conscious, trying to be more aware of our habits and what we do, and trying to shape our lives in a way where we are trying to be more God conscious. Those type of accountability partners, try to from the Muslim community, right? Just community is it's a big part of that. And I know from experience, right, that sometimes you are in communities where it's just not there, right? It's just not there, and there is a challenge, and sometimes even a non-motivational factor to you feeling like I take up this burden and create that community. So that's something that you have to assess, right? Or you may feel like I'm not in a spot where I can do that, right? I'm struggling, kind of like what I was thinking with this presentation. I'm struggling. Well, make the intention is there, and maybe that is the resolution. Maybe that might be a resolution. Well, how do then I create an environment where I can then, inshallah, function better, and others can come, and then a community just forms. But overall, accountability, support. You have to have support. I don't know, just from being on both ends, I think, of the spectrum with that, where I see that I succeeded the most or flourished the most was when I was in a community that was just fertile with just that support and and those reminders, as opposed to where I got stagnant was, I'm talking about from an Islamic perspective, where when I was in communities where that wasn't there, and you end up feeling like, do I create it? Do I seek, do I maybe drive 30, 40, 50 minutes away to get it? Like, those are real challenges, and I don't have an answer for it, but I'm just saying that it is best that you are in an area where you can be held accountable, and you have those around you that organically or with purpose are saying, I'm gonna hold you accountable. And that's, again, all of this is based on a foundation of seeking to increase our taqwa, right? If you're not, then that really doesn't matter. But if you are, and that's your goal, that's your resolution in some way or another, then these things make a big difference. And last, give your resolution time to become a habit. Okay. And it says new routines don't just become habits overnight, right? We know that, right? Even if I say I want to pray more, that's not going to become a habit overnight. And so I think then that brings in the conversation. I think there's this not big, I just think that there's this mindset to kind of rote habits and then habits with intention. But I think that when it's something like what was mentioned before about what I mentioned before about some things you cannot abandon, right? You can't say, well, this resolution I'm not going to do, right? You have to face it. It has to be done. And sometimes developing these habits or this rote thing that creates a type of muscle memory, right? So that you at least your body or your mind gets into the habit of doing it, such that once your cognition gets a little bit better, at least your body is still like, okay, but I know to do it. Like if I don't know to do anything else, right? I know I got to get up at least 5 times a day and I got to pray. I got to get up. I got to go do wudu. I got to pray. Like my body knows that if I'm standing at the sink, right, and I'm washing my hands, sometimes for me personally, I'm washing my hands and it may not even be prayer time, but instinctively, before I know it, I've just done wudu, right? Because it's just a muscle memory, right? So developing those habits is important. I also feel, just because, and I think that this is something that's becoming more, just because we just know more now, right? That, you have those people, or you have some of us, right, across the board, but from, even in the Muslim community, where we know that there may be times in their life where they only have enough energy to do what they need to do, and this is from an emotional perspective, what have you, and then and that little bit of energy, that may be all that they give out to the people in the world, but when they come into their own environment, they have energy for nothing. May Allah save us, right, from that. But we go through those emotional fluctuations, and some are more extreme than others. So in my opinion, if you have a habit of just, if at that point in your life, rotely, I got up, I did Fajr, and maybe I went and sat back down until I had to get up and leave out of this house 5 hours later for whatever reason, but I did Fajr. I got up, I did do it because my body is just used to doing that. Then I feel like that's a step, right? That's a foundation. That's a habit that has been formed. And inshallah, with the other aspects of this, the community and things of that nature, right, then you have some things that can kind of maybe rejuvenate you to a point where then when you get out of that phase, at least you didn't abandon certain things. At least you haven't developed habits that are counter to what you're trying to do, right? So that continuous, right? I got to keep doing this. I got to make this a habit. I got to make this a habit, right? So I think that rote can be beneficial at times for certain things that just have to be done. It has to be done, right? Especially, with prayer and things of that nature. It has to be done. That having that as a habit, even if you're not fully into it, may not necessarily be something that is a bad thing or insignificant, or that can be encouraged, in my opinion. But then we talk about those habits where we are cognizant and we know, right? Like if we think about the habit of believing in the unseen, right? As those that are mentioned in Surah Baqarah 1-5, right? Al-Muttaqin, what are the habits that they display, right? They believe in the unseen, they establish prayer, they spend out of what is provided for them, right? They also believe in what was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and before him, right? What was revealed before him. And they're certain of the hereafter, right? They've caused themselves to kind of, through all of these actions, right? Through just continuous habits of this, right? Their certainty becomes, right? Oh, wow, no, I'm certain of this, right? These are, right? I'm cognizant that this is what I'm trying to attain. I just got to keep doing it. I got to keep researching, keep studying, keep having at least some type of accountability partner there. Keep doing these things so that I can be successful in that goal. Until it's just second nature, like that's just what I do, right? That's just who I am. Just keep that going. So that is my presentation. And again, although it was the crux of the presentation was Surah Baqarah, ayats 1-5. Although the literal translation of that is not necessarily a reflection of how do you accomplish this goal, right? How do you accomplish a resolution? I think that the terminology that's used and what can be pulled from the Arabic and the choice of the forms of the verbs that is used, in my opinion, indicates characteristics and habits of initiative, repetition, right? These are what habits are, right? We take the initiative to do something, right? We take the initiative to set a goal, and then we create these habits, this repetition of causing ourselves to continuously do this, and then creating an environment where we have a support system, where we have guidance, right? Where we have everything we need to ensure that we can accomplish this, not taking on too much, doing what we can with the intent of doing more, growing, like, doing a little bit, accomplishing that, getting to that plateau, then going up some more, getting to that plateau, then going up some more, right? But it becomes a continuous process, inshallah. So that's my presentation, inshallah. Everything I said was from a perspective of me reading those verses and pulling from that. So if anything was erroneous or incorrect, may Allah forgive me, and that's on me. But if anything benefited anyone, then alhamdulillah. And I pray that it was the best representation of Allah's word, according in trying to explain this thought process that I was having.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, Sister Naimah. I think for me, what stood out the most was related to the goal setting and using the SMART goals for my spiritual goals.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we'll use them for our corporate goals, our job, or even things we may want to improve around our homes or just in our daily lives. But so we'll be very specific, and I'm going to make these SMART goals. But when it comes to our spiritual life, we'll just say, well, I want to pray more. I want to give more to the, charity, and it's just sort of general. We don't make a goal around it. It's sort of like it's nice to do, and I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a plan for it. We don't make a specific plan for it. So the next thing we know, it's 6 months later, a year later, and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't mean to do that, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Because while on the other hand, you have this list of goals and things that you're going to do and how you're going to accomplish them, related to your job and getting a promotion and all the other things. But when it comes to your spiritual life, which is way more important, we tend to just sort of, say, well, this is nice to do. So I really appreciated that, because that sort of made me go, okay, do you set specific, or do you do the nicest nice to, yeah, this is what I want to do, but
yes,
really,
yes, very true. And I think if I can piggyback or add to that, right, that as I stated, when you reached out to me and told me the intent of the quarter, right, and I'm thinking, I don't know if I know how to tell, but what it did, as you stated, what that does is, you're right, we seek the Quran, right? We go, okay, I don't know, but Allah knows, right? And it becomes something where you have to look at yourself, right? Like for me, that came from me looking at that and saying, oh wow, right, that is something that I don't, I never really looked at those 5 verses from that perspective. But then looking at it from that perspective, you're like, oh, like I gotta do some stuff. Like this is not a passive thing,
right.
It's an active, very active. I'm not gonna say succeeding, but this life that we're living, regardless, is an active thing, right? And then as we from an Islamic perspective, right, it's not something that just comes by osmosis. Like attainment of these things come through work, right? Any goal, right, it comes through work. You have to work for it. Right. And we see that reflected in a lot of places in the Quran that I just didn't put all right. We say it, the one all the time, right? That nothing to man but what he works for, and soon, what he is working for, he'll soon see, right? So a lot of reminders that Allah gives us that it's about working. You have to take the initiative. You have to.
Right. Well, thank you so much, alhamdulillah, for you coming back yet again and sharing with us not only your Quranic knowledge of Arabic and your Quranic Arabic knowledge and expertise, but just your knowledge in general, how you put the Quran in usable terms and language that we can use in our daily lives and understand. That's one of our goals, is just to make the Quran as Sunnah more user-friendly and translate it to a language that people understand and can use in their daily lives. So that's like the goal for Al Mizan, is not just presenting it from a female perspective, but to give the audience usable Quranic references and Sunnah references that they can now go back and incorporate. So inshallah, we've reached that goal today, and thank you so much for being with us. If our audience will stay on, we'll have a few community announcements. Alaikum assalam. Have a few community announcements. So if you are in the Houston area, there will be a Janazah orientation on Saturday, February 1st at 11 a.m. Registration is required. I will put the link to the registration in the comment section. And this is for Muslims and their family members. So please invite your family members to attend. Individuals from our Ummah who are interested in learning Janazah process, we are encouraging you, and especially our young, to attend this session. And then on February 14th through 16th is the Resilience Con, which is the annual Muslim African American History Conference. And they will have presenters from around the country in the city of Houston, February 14th through 16th. The event on the 15th, which is Saturday, held at Masjid As-Sabrin, will have a $15 fee. And I will place the registration link in the comment section as well. So this is the Black History, African American History program or conference that will be taking place Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in February. And that concludes our community announcements. We want to thank you all for attending our Sunday Al Mizan Taleem, and Assalamu Alaikum.